YouTube comments from a video titled, Gen Alpha Can't Read and Teachers Are FEDUP. Part 4.
At Silver Shadows, G7P wrote,
If Generation Alpha continues on their current underdeveloped trajectory, they could be unemployable and be replaced with AI in the future once they hit job-seeking ages, since they will not have the people skills that make us human, and therefore able to complete social and dynamic tasks that could never be replicated with an algorithm. Good luck with a generation of illiterate, dysfunctional hobos. I hope society finds a way to turn this generation around. And you thought millennials were bad? SMH.
Joe Outdoors wrote,
By the time I went to kindergarten, Mom and Dad had taught me my ABCs, some basic math and right from wrong. That was before preschool days, and everybody gets a ribbon even if you suck. Can't do much teaching of your kids if they are on their phone in their bedroom, and you're on yours in your bedroom.
At Michelle Bonsi, JT5LH wrote,
My granddaughter is 3 and lives with her father under the state guise since she was born. She doesn't talk in sentences. She just says one word. And doesn't the state see anything wrong here? She's supposed to start school in 2 years. How is she going to be ready? I'm quite sure she is not potty trained yet.
At Jack Garrett 7349 wrote,
Sorry about the very minimal amount of children that need potty training. But you can't be a kindergarten teacher and whine about children that don't know how to act and know how to learn. This is exactly where they are supposed to learn how to do this before elementary school. I know you thought it would be easy and fun to spend all day playing with 4 and 5-year-olds who already know how to read and write, but that's just not how it is. You are a teacher. Either learn how to teach in difficult situations or go be a waitress in Denny's. I'm not giving parents a pass, but people have been teaching children to read, write, and do math for centuries. Figure it out or go do something else.
At Mr. Wright 9867 wrote,
I teach 3 to 5. Students don't get books. Everything is on the computer. I teach reading and they made photocopies of the stories. That's all. I started in 2004. We used to have full sets of books. Full class libraries. Now good luck.
At Woolorp wrote,
I'm from Germany, and the trend of bad readers is continuing here overseas as well. The moment of the teacher complaining about his extra mile not giving is leaving me heartbroken. The best course was an extra curriculum we did in the equivalent of high school. Our music teacher took us a week before mid-term vacation on a boat ride around how commercials are manipulating us, decaying us how we can spot in an advertising picture how our attention is railroaded around. Since then, these advertising pictures lost all their power on me. I love that. We could just sat around and listen to some music, but the teacher did something amazing for all of us.
At Marcel 6448 wrote,
Such poor slop analysis. No deeper insight on why this might be happening. No studies quoted or any reliable sources. Just slop opinion and recycled short form videos. If you want to be more informed about this issue, please seek your information elsewhere.
At Tank of Nova 9022 wrote,
Gen Alpha is going to be the generation that starts making major parallels to idiocracy. Whatever we name the next generation after will be that filmed down near 1-to-1.
As Production Sync wrote,
Parents like this say they want to be involved in their kids' education until they actually have to be involved in their kids' education, and then suddenly it's all the teacher's responsibility.
As Spazrobert 718 wrote,
I have taught high school for 27 years. Most students fail freshman math because they refuse to do any work during class or any homework. They are moved to sophomore math, not having passed freshman math. They fail that. They are moved to the next class. They fail that. They go to summer school for 14 days and get credit for the class without knowing anything. The district puts a lot of pressure to pass students because they get more money. Teachers are shamed for failing students by admin.
Patacone wrote,
Low IQ raises their kids to have an even lower IQ. That's not a good direction to be going. Teachers aren't housekeepers or maids. Raise your own kids instead of getting your nails done.
Etna VHVL 1105 wrote,
I don't know. I made sure that my daughter learned the fundamentals, learning to read and writing and other basic math. Parents should have the responsibilities and accountability of their kids, whether they are homeschooled or public or private schools.
At KCC 879 wrote,
And they don't care. So why should we? I think schools should close and let the parents and community deal with the fallout. Students just don't think they have a problem and genuinely think they're okay. I've worked on farms in between teaching jobs with islanders who are illiterate. It was very eye-opening seeing what they go through because they can't read. Managers were using colors as a way to help them place stickers on bananas the right way up because they couldn't even identify letters. The shape of the letter and whether or not it is upside down or the right way up. I will continue to read, so will my son. I can also relate to creating an amazing assessment that involves teamwork, outside activities, incursion at sea, and yet they still do not make an effort. It's terrible. I've got this issue with PE. Create a training program for your buddy to improve one aspect of their fitness. I've had a professional coach in our class once a week doing professional rugby training. I'm documenting everything with notes, photos, and summaries. I then print those summaries with pictures at sea, and my students won't fill in their fitness program, and some won't even participate in the exercises. Guttered.
At Terrorud 8407 wrote,
Many of the curriculum choices are politically driven. CRT, transgenderism, etc. Parents need to put down their tech devices and get involved in their child's education. This has been happening in school districts in some parts of the country, but not nearly enough. I would think that if parents truly love and care about their child, they would have daily involvement with the child's educational progress and, at the very least, communicate at least 2 or 3 times with the teacher as to child's classroom behavior, assignments, goals, etc. I think a teacher would be thrilled to hear from positively involved parents. Yes, there are bad teachers and bad parents. That will never change. But the parent/teacher relationship can be an incredibly positive thing for a child's educational/life future.
Demura wrote,
When you let idiots grow up and begin to create new humans, the new humans are going to be even worse. And somehow other people are now expected to make up for the shortcomings of the parents.
At Old Dog Learn New Tricks wrote,
This is my main problem is AI. The reduction of a need to use an ability will lead to the loss of that ability. It's the same reason Gen Z doesn't want to talk to anyone on the phone. I know tons of people who don't know basic division.
At Joneve 2071 wrote,
In Quebec, Canada, some college teachers I know have told me kids no longer know how to use a dictionary. We've seen this coming, and my employer told me last year that given the traits of the new generation, the workplace would have to adjust. Like what?
That the quantum wave wrote.
I was an English major in college back in 1993. I was in my second year, taking 200 level linguistics classes, when the college instituted a new requirement for all English majors, a level 099 class on basic grammar, spelling, and punctuation, because too many incoming freshmen were functionally illiterate. I can only imagine how much worse it is today with the explosion of slang, emojis, and lazy abbreviations on social media. The college, for those wondering, was NIUE in DeKalb, Illinois.
Esilkaran wrote.
It really starts to sound like a conspiracy theory, but why would anyone care about education, RN? People can't find jobs, rents are rising, businesses are affected by tariffs and lack of tourists, food stamps are being removed, people can't afford medicine. ICE is on a rampage, and you have a crazy old man in power. A man that is more interested in remodeling the WH rather than the well-being of his subjects. Why the F do you think education will be high on the agenda? It's easier to manage poor, hungry, sick, uneducated masses.
At FL1 Blee wrote.
The failing of children lies far more with the parents than the teachers. This is what happens when you raise your kid on an iPad with no discipline or boundaries.
At Morninglery 3323 wrote.
It's sad, but the old way of teaching is absolute. Now the world is changing for good or bad. Maybe a different approach is needed. Maybe teachers are not needed anymore. AI is taking over everything.
At Eddie Nash 2152 wrote.
People need to work in hard labor camps if they directly contribute to the downfall of society and then attack the same society for recognizing them as a cancer.
At _Nova wrote.
Two things. One, children who cannot read by grade 4 and treat books like tablets should have their parents investigated for child neglect. And giving your tablet to your child to pacify them should be considered child abuse. I was reading Thomas Pynchon immediately out of high school. I was top 1% reading score in the state. My mother read to me and my sister when we were children. It is child neglect if your child cannot read. 2. Pass laws to limit this destruction and do not allow children to graduate until their reading scores improve. Not even math is as important as being able to read competently. This is child neglect and social media companies lobbying to have children engaged with mind-rotting slop 24/7. Public education needs to be burned to the ground and rebuilt entirely.
The Black wrote.
3 years ago, we dropped off our daughter at college. I got the first phone call after her English Lit class. Mama, they can't read. It takes the majority of my class 10 minutes and longer to read one paragraph. 8 sentences, and they look up and go, I don't get it? This is so bizarre. Now she has a job as a para at a high school while finishing up her degree in teaching special education, and she keeps telling me how bad the all-over situation is in school when it comes to reading, writing, and math. She never says that it is the kids' fault. It is always the parents and their lack of interest in their children. For the longest time, I thought she was talking about the kids she works with. No, it is the kids that do not have an IEP that are lost.
At MyCap19Nerd89 wrote.
That's why preschool and daycare are so valuable. We help support reading, writing, ABCs, potty training, self-regulating, problem-solving, and self-sufficiency. Even telling time and tying shoes. Teachers aren't allowed to help with bathrooming. That's a lot of kids to need to help. It's not their job and not in their contracts. If you can't afford full-time daycare, there's part-time and subsidy programs. I work with school-age kids that can't read well if at all in grade 4, Sepaures Andia. Most I work with can't tell time on a regular clock and many can't tie shoes. They're more accident injury prone too. Common sense is sorely lacking on top of that.
At Academic Sanctuary 1361 wrote,
Potty-trained by 2. Some will resist into 3. But 5? 5 is nuts. They are totally derailed developmentally. Speaking of students crying to their parents over assignments they chose not to do, a new administration at a college let me go because, heaven forbid, I failed students who didn't do their coursework. We're talking 2003 at the college level. This trend isn't new, but it has grown like a cancer.
At Nelson Gonzalez 1263 wrote,
I agree with this issue itself, but blaming Gen Z parents because they are scrolling on TikTok is not accurate. Some parents maybe, but majority of households have both parents working full-time. There is not a stay-home parent to focus on continuing learning after school.
At Resist Oppression wrote,
I had this exact argument with someone over schools not teaching enough creative thinking and kills what creativity they have. The education is the equalizer. The smarter you are, the more creative you'll be. Cart before the horse. Pay teachers like politicians, shrink class sizes to 10 kids max, give them the fucking tools and updated information. Teach my kids STEM and reading comprehension all day. I'll make sure they're potty trained. I don't want other adults touching my kids' privates. WTF? Protect your kids, dumbasses.
At Herde_CK wrote,
I am an assistant professor for undergraduate law students in India, and I started seeing similar trends in the past 2 years. The 20 to 21-year-olds I teach have no interest in debates or discussions. I tried to make a class engaging with visual aids, pop culture references, and real-life examples, but they just stare at me with glazed eyes, waiting for the opportunity when they can glance at their phones. I remember one day I gave them a very devised controversial topic to discuss amongst themselves. A whole hour went by in total silence, as they just looked at their phones. They are not even interested in speaking to each other. The biggest problem are the college management that have no interest in enforcing strict policies on phone usage, and the parents that are totally uninterested in the quality of their children's education.
At Mitchell Flavor 2287 wrote,
This is exhausting. I am so grateful that we made the decision to eschew the traditional school system altogether and homeschool. My children have gone from strength to strength. All high schoolers and beyond now with one in a master's program for mathematics. My youngest is grade 9. I just had him do diagnostic testing to make certain we hadn't let anything fall through the cracks, and he scored at a mid-grade 12 level. Homeschooling is so much better than what any school system can provide.
At Vicita Spartan wrote,
Because their Gen X and millennial parents didn't want to put a damn effort on paying attention to them and see teachers as nannies for their children, not as people who transmit knowledge. In fact, these people are the same who shouldn't have children, and just have them for social pressure.
Kathy Brown 16X wrote,
As a fellow teacher and a parent to a child with LDs, I respectfully disagree with this teacher. Schools are not providing adequate resources for children with LD.
At Glenstone 22 wrote,
Your child should be potty trained by kindergarten anyway, if your child is not potty trained by 5 years old. Your child is either really dumb or just way too slow in the head.
At Teresa Feeney 2756 wrote,
I remember about 5 years ago I worked with a young man who was about 20 to 21. I asked him to write up an order, and when I read it, it looked like a 5-year-old wrote on the paper. I said, damn, you have sloppy penmanship. He then told me he was never really taught to write in school because everything is on computers. That young man didn't know how to write a check or read a wall clock, and he did graduate from high school.
Hannah Joe 32 wrote,
This is just the result of forced births.
Millennials got whined by their boomer parents into having babies they didn't want, and the pandemic only made it worse. So now, there's going to be an entire generation of fully unwanted children who are going to have to raise themselves. And I say that as an elder millennial who was a forced birth. My mom was a teenager and was not legally allowed to abort me, and she told me my entire life that I should have never been born. In fact, one time, she challenged me to unalive myself. I looked right in the eye, and I did it. To which that bitch took me to the hospital and said that I was mentally unstable and that she didn't force me into it. She didn't bully me into it. She got all the praise for having my stomach pumped. She got all the praise for being a good mommy. And then, when we got home, she told me next time do it alone. So there's about to be an entire generation of children neglected like I was. My parents like me who never wanted them. Oh, get it, and don't anyone come at me, but that's just your life experience. I was forced by the courts multiple times into court-ordered therapy with hundreds of other little girls, just like me, whose mommies hated them and wanted them gone. Cases of abandonment cases, of abuse cases, of assault. There's a lot of us children out there who grew up to become terrible parents, and if the law requires us to keep the babies we don't want, you do that math.
Ed L. Mercier wrote,
Plot twist. Kids couldn't read when I went to school either. Somehow they made it to Congress and to the highest office in the land. Which is why we have the likes of Donald Trump, Mitch M.C. Connell, and RFK, Murica.
John Dingo Fox Velocity wrote,
Interesting, maybe we should talk about the rich parents that are creating these horrible children. For example, explain to me why a Gen Alpha kid, as you describe them, is allowed to drive a $200,000 Tesla. Or how about Johnny just got his driver's license and his parents gave him a charger for his first car. These are the issues you are dealing with. With these kids, the parents keep telling the kids that here's the money. I don't care how you spend it. This is horrible. I got to see this with several YouTubers whose family are loaded and the kids buy all the sports cars and repair them on YouTube, and the parents are paying for all the cars and the kid hasn't worked a day in his life. So before you immediately say it's always the teacher, it's not, and before you say it, the parents, it is.
At John Springstorm 4764 wrote,
I taught in university, and the last place that I taught the use of cell phones was fully supported. It was absolutely ridiculous. Their writing and reading skills were bad. These were graduate students and people going for their teaching certificates. They brought knitting to class and were texting one another. The university defended their behavior.
A Hellfire Hydra wrote,
Partially why GE and Alpha can't read is because teachers aren't putting in the effort to actually try to teach. Those who struggle teachers focus on the kids that do the best and ignore those who are falling behind because they're all lost cause.
A Blunt Rapture wrote,
The poorly educated are giving birth to kids they poorly educate. Being in charge of a whole person's life is way beyond the capabilities of much of today's population. Stop the BS about getting married and having kids. We've got to try to slow down this trend of getting stupider and stupider. It may sound cliche, but kids need to go outside instead of being online. We are so entertained by shiny things that we are letting the internet think for us. Soon, we won't need to think anymore. If we don't move, we'll get fat or atrophy. We don't think, we become morons.
At Lady Valrith Games wrote,
I was raised in the 1970s and 1980s, and although I don't have children, if I did, they would be taught and learn how to read, write, and develop math skills.
At Tracy Stewart 1182 wrote,
I worked at an elementary school with an after-school program kids could sign up for. One class that a teacher provided was a giant board game activity. She recreated classic board games that were life-sized. Her first game was Candyland. With HER Money AND time, she created items from the game. She was so proud and excited to play it with the kids. I was there after school when my daughter came in and told me how the kids were behaving. They were punching, tearing, laughing at / making fun of, etc. all of her decorations. The teacher was trying so hard to get them involved and enjoying it. I stood nearby and watched for a moment. Then I went and sat in on the activity and tried to encourage the couple of kids who seemed to want to play. By this time, most of the decorations were crushed and / or torn and hanging half off the walls. The young teacher was obviously destroyed, but she couldn't say / do too much because SHE would be the one in trouble with admin and parents. I lost ITONTHE kids. I pulled full I'll beat your ass into the gutter in the streets if given the slightest opportunity voice. Made them all sit down and look at what they had done. Pointed out the teacher's face and how she feels. Told them how she paid for all this and stayed up WAYTO late for days doing this FOR them. I was not quiet nor was I nice. I told them how horrible they are being, not that they are horrible, that they were behaving horribly and have choices every single moment. I knew this young teacher, her first year teaching, would never put this much effort into anything ever again. Some kids seemed to get the lesson I was teaching. Some didn't. I made them all carefully walk around to pick up the remainder of the game pieces and bring them to her. Every kid had to bring something to her and look her in the face. I was just a hired teacher's aide working part-time. I tried to do my own versions of activities throughout the year. Unless it included a YouTube video of something, most kids didn't engage. My own kids, adults down to now 16, knew that if ever they treated someone like this ATALL, I ain't afraid of CPIS if it means I got my point across.
At Paula Skybe 5347 wrote,
Not even 30 minutes. My boys could read by time they went to school. That 10 to 15 minutes I took to read to them one book at bedtime made all the difference. Mind you, I was also a single working mother. I understand the fatigue of being a single parent. Yet not only did that little time reading make a difference educationally, my boys learned Mom will make time for them. They were worth my time and energy.
A You Can't See Me wrote,
It's not just Gen Alpha. Blue cities are notorious for having abysmal adult literacy rates, the highest of which is LA with 42% of grown-ass adults who could read you a page from The Cat in the Hat. And that's only because the actors and writers in Petalwood bring that average worry up. Baltimore, Philly, Chicago, and Detroit are much more telling with numbers ranging from 8% to 22%.
At Anthony LaPlantepequin 3053 wrote,
I've been teaching for 5 years and I'm planning my exit. I won't last 35 years. There is no way. Parents are useless and they raised useless kids. I'd say fuck in sad.
The Tycoon Troy 59 wrote,
Oh, please. Maybe if they didn't expect a first grader to be able to read Tale of Two Cities. We all have more of everything now except some damn sense. World went and got so smart it's full circle back to stupid.
At Veronica 1979C wrote,
These useless kids will be our future. Doctors, engineers, teachers, politicians. Scary. They will not become functional adults out of the blue. Their deep structure is already deformed. Idiocracy on the way.
At Shingen 3665 wrote,
To get the kids to stop saying 6 to 7, just say 2, lol. Of course they think it funny and it sounds so uncool when an adult says it. But you also ruin it, blah.
At Denise_the piece wrote,
Elementary school nurse here. I am shocked by how much hand-holding these students need. Definitely not for lack of teacher effort, they try us so hard. Half the kids that come see me are doing so for work avoidance or tell me how boring their lesson is. Sweetheart, you need to be in that lesson. I honestly worry for the future. Teachers, please keep doing your best. It does not go unnoticed by those that see you.
SNMYT wrote,
Fukam, y own generation NOW hate me. Aldisipri in this world anyways. If a teen is reading this, then admit you're a kid. You're somewhere around 8 to 13 years old. Go read bedtime stories.
At Pamela Caro 8556 wrote,
When my daughter turned 3, I had to push her to get potty trained so that she could attend preschool. This timeline put the pressure on me as a parent to get her ready. Fast forward, I have 2 daughters in private school, and by end of kindergarten, the best lesson that a teacher taught me as a parent is that I am the primary educator for my child. It felt so empowering that I could teach my own children and help them read. They are thriving, still have their challenges, but I get to be part of that education journey with them. It's not all on the teachers.
At Eliza Bear 79 wrote,
I worked in childcare for 15 years. All our kids were potty trained by 3, maybe 4 for outliers. No child should be going to school in a diaper.
At Moonviewmidness 6696 wrote,
30-year-old dyslexic here. Reading isn't my strong suit, but I do enjoy it from time to time. I really like manga and comic books. Granted, it's not as much reading as a full-blown book, but still it's something. Watching this made me decide that if I ever have any spawns of my own, reading will be in the top 5 on the list of priorities.
At Alzan Void wrote,
I wonder how they'll survive once they graduate and enter the job market. Honestly, I hope the situation improves. If not, Gen Alpha will be the breaking point. They'll be even less equipped to handle everything than us.
At Cynthia FX4 we wrote,
The education system is not broken, although it is not perfect. The homes are broken, and the parents are sending children to school who are not ready or prepared to learn. The parent is the first teacher. What are they doing?
At Anamkara 7068 wrote,
But they're not going to be working, are they? We're living in a time when there are all sorts of activists promoting the idea of basic income, without any employment as a guarantee for that income. We're living in the age of the cyborg, that there is no such thing as a free human being, but only the human being who serves the machine and its progress. These kids, the pathetic expendables, are expected to live out their lives as the passively entertained. Somehow the food will get to them, whether provided through a slave class or through the simulator producing stuff that tastes like meat. And they'll just sit on their couches all day long scrolling, imagining they are heroes, when really they are just becoming flat soulless blobs sitting on a couch with drool coming out of their mouths. The main thing is that they will serve the machine that will make the elite immortal. What serves the machine? Their drool, their stupidity, their emptiness, their limbic needs. And they'll serve until they're not needed anymore, until they become depressed or dissatisfied with the empty system in which they are enmeshed. They won't have skills to survive outside of it, and they'll kill themselves to do us all a favor. This is far darker than you are presenting it. This is the end of humanity.
Kachin 9590 wrote,
Is gentle parenting. They believe their kids will tell them when they're ready to be potty trained and won't bother until that time comes. Gentle parenting is letting children be their own parents. As a result, Gen Alpha will be the most retarded, the most neglected, and the most dependent generation to ever exist. hampered, coddled, and developmentally damaged. Humanity is doomed.
At Use a Patriot 444 wrote,
One major reason is that the parents gave them screens instead of taking time to read to them. The second reason is that some parents today don't or teach their kids to respect authority and obey reasonable expectations and demands.
Equilium Rapscallion wrote,
I'm old and one of my friend's little brothers at 5 was not potty trained and in kindergarten at the school. The parents were highly educated and the mother had her own ideas about child rearing. That said, she came to the school whenever it was necessary to change diapers. My reaction as a 11-year-old was horror, though. I just couldn't imagine.
At Dorinda Middleton 5418 wrote,
We need a scared straight program for kids who have no buy-in to their education. Show them the job opportunities for their level of education and the salary that goes with it. If they want to pick crops, pump gas, or do yard work, let them see what it's like. If they think they can do better than a day laborer, let them see what it's like to work retail or wait tables. If that's easy, then maybe try for office type jobs. I think reality is the only thing that will change their attitude. We let them slide, and that's not teaching them anything.
A Cheridex Gave wrote,
Well, even if boomers are technically able to read, they don't understand, and pretending to do, and that's how we got flurfs, no-vaxxers, and MAGAs. The problem is not just newer generations.
At Holy Spirit 21 wrote,
Bro, I potty-trained my kids way before school. What the fuck? Like, I understand medical stuff, but this is messed up. My kids can read, so I don't know why some of these kids can't. To be honest, I blame the parents, because libraries are free, and I know most people have a phone, so why can't see way people can't take 10 minutes to read a few pages of a book with their children, like seriously. Some of these parents nowadays are fucking ridiculous, like, come on.
Detrav_Esty wrote,
As a California resident, I think it's insane that you can send unpotty-trained 5-year-olds to public school. Also, I know a lot of teachers don't give homework anymore. I think homework is a good thing, such as reading any book, pick your favorite, Harry Potter or Twilight, for fuck's sake, for 30 minutes a night, basic worksheets that require parental help. Homework should be to get the parents involved, not necessarily to give the child more work.
A Chetsmum 65 wrote,
My dad was a teacher. Teachers go to college and spend bank trying to become a teacher to help children learn and grow. Why do parents and supposed adults chic? Tea on teachers and nurses. These are the two most undervalued professions in the USA. I always hear people bitch that teachers are overpaid, get summer vaca, blah blah blah. This isn't the 1970s, when my dad was a Detroit HS teacher and my mom was a housewife, with 2 kids and a house. Teachers work second jobs now. Teachers are used as glorified babysitters. Why do people praise billionaire CEO parasites but feel free to shit? Tea on teachers, who actually work for a living. Thank God for the teachers and nurses out there who do their jobs well. They are truly blessed souls.
James Wanders wrote,
I can't help but wonder if there's something else influencing the parents. Like, there's always been built-in motivation to potty train as quickly as possible, and that hasn't changed. Ain't no app for changing a diaper, though I wonder if the Doodash domain is available.
A Jason Boredom wrote,
Ladies and men, both of you need to stop with the gentle act. You cannot just tell your child no, you have to show them. Discipline hitting a child is not child abuse. There are many rules to child abuse, and one of them is not just because a child is upset that you hit them doesn't mean it's child abuse.
A Sim Dreams Are wrote,
I mean, not to be rude, but most Gen Alpha parents are millennial and seeing their track record through life, I'm not entirely surprised. Problem is, Gen Z are gonna be just as bad or even worse. So we are fucked.
As 6_Speed Gonzalez wrote.
I once worked in an after-school STEM education program teaching kids to program in stuff like Java and Python. I genuinely felt like their school system was failing them because all they wanted to do was play Minecraft and Smash Bros. And someone literally couldn't spell the word so. Spelling it so at age like 10-212. At that moment I realized everything I was doing was basically pointless. Cuts. I'm just teaching kids numbers and letters and they're following along but not understanding. Maybe I failed as an educator in my field, but I can't fix what others have already destroyed. And to clarify, I'm not 100% blaming the teachers, mostly the parents. And there I was, where all my parents did was blame me for systemic issues I had no control over.
Adonesian Persuasion wrote.
If you are going to take others' content and just comment on it, then at least be respectful and professional and credit the original posters, because it is their content that you're stealing from.
Ashley Nicole wrote.
Kids should not be allowed on social media. Also, parents not reading to their kids for at least 30 minutes a day is very sad because I'm certain those same parents spend about 3 to 4 hours on social media, their phones a day, if not more.
Eshuhonos. 792 wrote.
As a Hizila teacher, I've devolved into using graphic novels. To get them to write one paragraph, I have to chunk it sentence by sentence in a grid to make it seem less. To get them to discuss topics of rigor, they do podcast type of activities. Sigh.
At Jan, Nyoke 3666 wrote.
Things I hear all day in my 5th grade class. I don't are. Hell no, I'm not doing that. What the F? He or she did it first. Shut the F up. I don't know how to do this. This is too hard. I'm not doing this. Miss. I don't know.
At Psirly 5164 wrote.
My third kid refused to poop in the potty at 5. So we held her back, not starting her until she was 6 because of this. That's not the teacher's job. Crazy.
At fake_Emperor 365 wrote.
I was born in 06, the later half of Gen Z, and it's honestly depressing watching people my own age/older turn out to be zombie drones, especially the ones you've grown up with. Maybe it's the way I grew up, but to be fair, the most I remember of my developmental years is playing DS and console games with my mom/brother, which I wouldn't say is ideal, but is probably leagues better than growing up on iPads and smartphones. I didn't have my own smartphone until middle school, which I'm honestly glad for now. Didn't really have tablet access either until I was 8-ish, which I just played more harmless games like Geometry Dash and Angry Birds. Still turned out being a gifted student in elementary school, meaning I just never really had trouble with reading or math. It's just crazy to fathom that I'm in a fair minority of late Gen Z heirs that actually have some sort of brain function, even with my not very book-smart development. Bit of a random rant, but this video really got me thinking about it all. It's probably also important that I've never smoked or vaped or any of that shit and still have my V card.
At Njeri 3344 wrote.
I am not a teacher, but I work with babies and infants aged 8 months to 5 years. I would say that kids can be cheeky and seem to have poor respect for teachers. Not at all what it was like when I was in nursery, but one horrendous thing I saw was a 3.0 5-year-old that was horribly violent. absolutely abusing all the kids. Pinching, punching, and even biting his classmates. Im believed he had some form of a behavioral issue. Then I heard him say skibbity toilet, and almost instantly realized this child probably has unrestricted access to the internet and has most likely watches violent videos with no parental supervision. These kids are consuming content that isn't child-friendly. But because parents aren't present, that child's life is probably ruined before it has even started. He will go to school and assume to be a bad child when, in reality, lack of adult supervision means this child watched violent content as a toddler. There are repercussions to parents neglecting their kids. And if for that reason they are unable to follow school rules and requirements, I think we should kick out kids in grade school. It may sound harsh, but if a child like that was in the same class as my son/daughter, I would be extremely worried. Abusing classmates and students alike is reason to be referred to a professional, but because schools allow such behaviors and allow these kids to progress to the next year, it creates a horrible culture that people will only realize once a generation of adults don't know how to act.
Edman Birch wrote,
Your title says they can't read. I remember being taught to read in school, so maybe if they stopped teaching them to be gay and actually taught shit in school, maybe teachers wouldn't have this problem.
At Jordan Beloved 4268 wrote,
If you are a kindergarten or first grade teacher, it is your job to deal with potentially some kids here and there who wear diapers. Whether the child is just behind or has a disability, it is 100% your job if you're teaching kids that young. Not your job to potty train them, but children have accidents or wear diapers sometimes. It happens.
At Jordan Beloved 4268 wrote,
I agree it isn't the teacher's job to potty train, but her complaining that some kids aren't is mad annoying. Plenty of children that young have accidents or other issues you will have to deal with, and it is your job as their teacher to not just teach them, but also deal with any special needs they may have or help them or nurture them. It isn't just a job that is take care of them or teach them. That 100% is the job she signed up for. Not to potty train them, but to not do the bare minimum. If she wanted to not have to deal with children, she should have gotten a different or taught a different age group.
At Rabbitsage wrote,
Yeah, you lost me when you said gaming for hours was equatable to TikTok brain rot. Research says gaming is actually a very good hobby for building neuroplasticity. People who play games often outperform people who don't. If you don't believe me, look for yourself. It's not passive engagement the way TikTok is. When was the last time you had to solve a puzzle to continue a TikTok video, for example?
At Meg Cazalet wrote,
That teacher in his car needs to not drive and rant at the camera at the same time. That is also discouraging. I understand his frustration, but dude, do this at home or in a parking lot.
A Slender Sarah wrote,
Man, some of these teachers seem real nice too. I remember that I was a little behind with things in kindergarten way back when, and rather than try to lead my parents through the process of helping me, my kindergarten teacher just straight up wanted to kick me out of kindergarten. She didn't succeed. My mother then sent me to a private tutor, and I almost immediately caught up. And who knows how the persistent feeling of insecurity affected my psychological development. Then here, these parents have teachers who actually want to do their job correctly, and they just take it for granted. What a shame. And my mom sat down with me and helped me too. It wasn't like she just pawned me off on a stranger. The tutor was just more professionally trained and had clever ways of teaching me things. I still have these letter tiles that she used to teach me with.
At Grimgrum T9N wrote,
I remember reading and doing math workbooks with my parents before going to school and continuing for the first few years into schooling. It put me way ahead of most kids, simply doing a page of math per night after dinner at the dinner table. It made school all the way through high school super easy. I finished required math early and took AP History, English and art classes. I wasn't a great student at all. I never did homework, but all my teachers liked me because I participated and paid attention and did well on tests and essays. My point here is my parents with very little effort set me up for success. It took me years to realize how much that little bit, reading at night and doing small amounts of math work daily for the first few years of school, made everything following that so easy. It's like teaching a kid to ride a bike by holding the handlebars for a few laps so they can get a feel for the ride and then letting them go. It's not an impossible task or really much effort.
At AGZN6XZ wrote,
The schools and school boards would rather dumb it down than raise the standards because it's easier and they get less complaints. And as long as they keep passing these kids from grade to grade, the funds keep rolling in.
At RedHen2123 wrote,
According to the National Assessment of Educational Progress NAP, a sector of the U.S. Department of Education, 84% of Black students lack proficiency in mathematics and 85% of Black students lack proficiency in reading skills. AXO. Don't make the Black kids angry, R.I.P. Colin Flaherty.
At Imminent Hope 8970 wrote,
There won't be any employers. AI will iterate everything. The irony of this behavior being raised on iPad, video games, and AI. Society is doomed. At the same time, billionaire Sam Trelian-Sires will be releasing meta virtual worlds, and these idiots will never keep it and become paraplegics trapped in a virtual matrix wasting away, and the corporation will force parents to force feed them or face neglect. So they will be FRD intravenously, while in the matrix spending parental funds the corporation compels them to provide or face neglect. The parents will be drawn in. Abe will feed the bulkhead bags. Humanity is over.
At Dilbert Dad 1994 wrote,
My brother teaches 7th to 8th grade students and says they can't even spell their own names. It has gotten so bad these kids are cooked, and the Gen Z workforce is going to have no one to hire.
At Joshua Nowakowski 8293 wrote,
I have 2 children, one with autism and the other identified with deficiencies. Medical term, don't come at me, and they both struggle with reading. They've been reading themselves, but it is always a struggle, but we make sure to put the work in. Sometimes it's finding something they like to read, other times it's just getting them to sit still. Both are borderline ADHD, but putting the work in is important.
At Lord Krithik 6246 wrote,
The problem is leftism. That's it. Gender is not a personal identity. It is not a character trait. There needs to be more to you than what you enjoy putting in your various holes, which, by the way, is no one's business but your own.
Prep Dad wrote,
My kid can read, and I don't want that book in the school. Paid a tutor to teach my son to catch him up. Now he's fine. I see gay books in the school, and am crashing out on that school. Won't be pretty or civil or non-violent.
At Simplicity 21 wrote,
I have more than 10 7th grade students reading at 1st grade or below. They can barely write their names. Yesterday they were doing a Nearpod activity that had them out their first and last name. The amount of students who didn't understand why it wouldn't just accept their first names is appalling.
At I Am Callium wrote,
What these terrible parents don't realize when they say you need to be part of the village is that those villages would kill or banish the parents that did this at some point because the village could not deal with leeches. Millennials have been the worst parents since the boomers, and the only reason I don't say they are worse than boomers is because administrators are also a huge issue. These kids should be expelled or the parents need visits by the police. At this point, I think that good parents should start filing class action lawsuits against administrators and school systems because Republicans want this to happen so more people go to private schools that are owned by Republican donors. So there is nobody who wants to fix this. Anytime a teacher is attacked, the school administrators and parents should get sued, and the parents should also get charged by police.
Jimmy Terry PWL wrote,
It's the illusion of letting kids think they are smarter than they are. They, along with Gen Z, also use longer words they've just learnt, but in the wrong way, thinking it makes them sound smart, and get very angry if you correct them. Examples like saying discussing for disgusting, properly for probably. I heard someone complaining product was discounted and wondered why they'd be moaning it was cheaper than I realized they meant. Discontinued problem is if you point things like that out, they get really defensive and say you should understand the context instead of learning. It applies a lot more to Gen Z, but they'll be raising the next generation to be worse.
Annan Millennial wrote,
History will show that pulling all kids out of school during the pandemic was far worse than the pandemic itself. It was an incredibly selfish and mindless decisions we made as a society. The numbers did not warrant it, but the tribal brain was so thick that anyone remotely asking to think about the trade-offs was painted as evil.
Executive Zombie wrote,
100,000 student loans and required education for teachers, but the kids don't care because parents are busted. But ChatGPT, AI doing nothing for humanity, spending trillions?
Jamazon 22 wrote,
Kids aren't a toy or an achievement medal. If you can't or don't want to put in the time and effort to raise them right, don't have them.
SHRLTLKS wrote,
I feel like the potty training thing had to be fake. I assume there are kids who do start kindergarten without being trained for whatever reason, but how many really? Is this really a pervasive thing, or is a few teachers here and there running into this problem with one student here and there? A lot of times we hear about something and it seems like it's happening now when it never used to, but in reality, it's just that we never used to hear about it because we didn't have social media.
The Queen's Crossing wrote,
I come from a family of readers. My son is in 3rd grade, and I still read to him at bedtime. We are reading Danny the Champion of the World by Ronald Dahl right now. I kind of feel weird reading a book about a father and son poaching pheasants from a rich man's land, but the kid likes it.
Zombie Cartel 13 wrote,
Everybody needs to STFU, cause our parents were so much worse. Teachers just have TikTok now and can complain. Imagine if teachers had TikTok back then.
Rhonda Turner 9494 wrote,
Yes, it takes a village to raise children. That's why parents don't have to worry about teaching their children to read, write, and do arithmetic. Has anyone asked these parents whether or not they were potty trained when they started school? I know I was, and I was only 4.
Key Ginger wrote,
Why aren't these kids being held back and forced to repeat the same grade? When I grew up, that happened any time a kid failed to demonstrate that they were ready to move into the next grade.